Welcome to Clay to Z. We're in the Amaco studio, and I'm Kara. I have David off screen. He's throwing today and making some plates. And let me see, I'm trying to get I'm trying to see. Trying to see comments. So hang on a minute, and I will be trying to find comments here in a minute. So today I'm going to continue working on this bust, this figure. And I'm also going to be doing some sgraffito of little dishes that I put velvets on last week. These are the new velvets. I'm also going to be making some witch hat ring holders. Not sure why I'm having so much difficulty. I think that I am having some problems with, hang on. I think I am having some problems with my Wi-Fi signal. So, let me see. Well, I might not be able to see comments today. That'll be interesting. So if you're watching, please do leave a comment. Let me know. If you have any questions, I'd love to hear them. I can see that some people are watching, but I cannot see comments. So, been working on this for a couple weeks. I'm going to start closing in the head and putting on some rough features today. Oh. Let's see. There we go. Janet says, please, please, please tell us about the new glazes. We will have more information on the new Cosmos glazes coming up in the next month here in September. And I do not know, I don't remember the exact dates for distributors to pre-order or when they will start shipping. But we will have as much information as possible when we can. So, Cosmos glazes, that is going to be a new glaze line coming up. I think I'm going to do kind of a Mendy henna-like design on this. And that's, Janet says, are they shiny? Yes. Yes, they are. They are shiny. They are very, very pretty. But I really can't tell you more than that at this time. But they are very, very beautiful. I'm very excited. So I'm using, this is Sgraffito, and I'm using my little Sgraffito tool. You can see the little loop. See the little loop? And it has a thicker loop at the other end that's good for clay that's a little firmer. September 15. Okay. David, can you make those without a gallery? Smooth all the way across?
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you. I switched my nib, so I'm going to switch over here. So I have kind of a flower shape going on with my Sgraffito. What do I want to do? Here we go. Now, I don't want to try to wipe off the crumbs because they're still a little sticky, and if I try to wipe them off, they'll smear my underglaze. So I do this when it's dry to the touch, but it's still leather hard. Think about, is that ready? Not quite. So. Yes, we have a lot of exciting news going on this fall. So you have new Celadon colors, new satin matte colors, new velvet colors, and now a new line of glazes that we think you'll be very, very excited about. So this looks really gray, but it's a white clay body. So when it's fired, this will be, it's kind of a creamy color. So this will be light color lines through the blue when it's done. It won't look as dark as it looks right now. And this is low fire clay. So this will get fired to cone 05 with just a clear glaze over it. It'll be really nice. I do not yet have the octopus cake stand out of the firing yet. That's going to have to be next week. I think we might get it into the kiln this weekend. I'm going to set this aside for a minute and get back to this figure. So I have the beginnings of the front of the face. The back of the head is coming out. Do need to kind of build that a little bit more. I've got my 11M clay. Now this is a different clay than the little dishes. This is our mid-range clay. And this figure is going to get fired to cone 5 or 6. So this is the appropriate clay for that. And this white stoneware is pretty forgiving, which not all white stonewares are, which I like. So I can hand build with it really easily. So, everybody, let me know. Do you have any special plans for Labor Day? Gonna see family? Going to just have a nice rest? Maybe some studio time? Go on a trip? What are your plans? There's my toothy rib. I like my little toothy scraper. You see the little teeth on there? Now, the head at this point is pretty, it's pretty much leather hard. You can still imprint it, but it's firm enough where I don't have to worry about anything collapsing. Hi, Nadia. Glad you could join us. So I'm mashing that coil in there on both the inside and the outside. And now as I work, I'm going to start thinning that coil and make it taller. Janet says, nothing notable here for the weekend, but plan on finishing 24 Thirsty Coaster. I'm sorry, 24 Thirsty Coaster. What is 24 Thirsty Coaster? Is that a show? Is that a event? Coasters. Making coasters. Alan says, morning. I'm not a sculptor, but I'll watch others do it. Well, I'm glad you're joining us. I will be doing some other things. I'm doing a little Sgraffito, doing a little other hand building. You know, I might use some of the new glazes on this piece. That would be a lot of fun. We'll see. this is also the point where I'm going to start putting features on this. Once I have the face on there, that's when I start doing features. So the first thing I do is kind of lightly draw my center lines. My lines for eyes, nose, mouth. And I'm going to stand up for this part because I could get a little more leverage. So you're going to adjust that. There we go. So I'm going to push out a little bit. Now the tricky thing with doing ceramic sculpture is that you're still having to do it like you're making a pot. Oh, Janet says, thirsty coasters. They're coasters that are not vitrified, so your cold drinks drip and are absorbed by the coaster. Oh, okay. Glazed and corked on the bottom, underglaze on top. Nice. Very interesting, Janet. That's a really great idea. Marie is joining us and says that sculpture's really coming along, looking good. Thank you, Marie. Hi. I'm glad you can join us. And that was kind of the idea behind starting this. And I know it's a long project, but you can see the development, and I don't work on it except right here in this live stream. So you get a sense of how much time it takes and see it developing. It's not a fast sort of project, but it works pretty well. So I'm going to, next step is putting in the eyes and the nose. So as I was saying, with anything that's going to get fired, you have to make sure that you still have the same construction methods that you would have if you were making a pot. So even though it's a sculpture, you will notice what I'm not going to do is make a nose and just stick it on, because that is a recipe for disaster. You will end up with something falling off. So the first thing I do is I have my line for where the eyes go, and I'm going to push in for the eye sockets. See? Just like that. And push out for the brow ridge. So I do most of my sculpting by pushing in or out to begin to get the shapes. And then for the nose, because if I push it out enough to make it the right shape, it'll be too thin. So what I do is I cut an upside down T, like so. See his little nose? And I push that out. Marinda says, maybe off the subject. We don't have a subject here, so don't worry about that. I have requests for white satin matte glaze SM11, but getting complaint that they scratch, leaving silverware marks. How can they remove these marks? I know that there are cleansers that can remove metal marking, but off the top of my head, I don't know. So you would have to either Google search for removing metal marking on ceramic glazes, or I can look it up and I will post it in the comments later today after the stream is over, because I do not know what removes metal marking. Janet says barkeeper's friend, and that shouldn't scratch either. But most satin glazes can show metal marking, so that you might want to use a harder glaze. And I know it's tough because the satin matte surfaces are really beautiful, but they will show, especially the white, will show metal marking. Janet says, I had dishes with that issue. It's difficult. So I'm going to score where I pushed out the note for the nose. So Nadia says, do you have enough thickness to be able to do your sculpture? Very good tips not to add clay, but work with the starting piece. Nadia, if you go back and watch all of the Clay to Z videos that I've posted so far on our YouTube, you will see this from the very, very beginning. So you can actually follow along completely. And yes, I do have enough thickness. This is entirely hollow, but it is about an average of about this thick throughout, about the thickness of my finger. And it gets thinner as I go to the top so that it's not tippy. So it's not going to tip over. And it is almost entirely coil built, and it is very much built like making a pot. So yeah, go back and watch all of the Clay to Z, after this, and you'll see how I got started with this, and you'll see more about the thickness. Here, I'll give you a little peek. Here we go. See, you can see the inside. There's the hole where I put a hole in the bottom. I always put a hole in the bottom. It's not that thick. It's completely hollow, but that shows you the hole. I always put a hole in the bottom so that I know there's a hole. It also is helpful if I ever want to put these where they need a post in them for stability. I can always put a post through that hole. And so just with the addition of the eye sockets and the nose, it has more human looking features. Push out. So if there's an area that I realize, that chin's too small, I really need to make the chin bigger. What I would do, and I'm going to do in this case, because I think that chin is a little bit smaller than I would like, I'm going to cut it open, just like I did the nose. Miranda says, unfortunately, so many younger people want the white low gloss glaze. Can I put a liner glaze down and this glaze over it with any success? I don't think that would work the way you're hoping. That's a tough ask. A liner glaze, if you put a gloss glaze down first and then you put a matte glaze over it, I don't think you would get the results that you're looking for, because they will interact. It'll still scratch. Even if it did look the way you want it, the satin matte glaze would still show metal marking. So I cut it open, and I'm adding a little coil in there to build out that chin a little bit. So as some of you may know, what causes blowouts in ceramic pieces is moisture. But if you have too much thickness built up and you have areas where you caught moisture in between sections, so if you just like lay a chunk of clay on top and you've caught moisture in between those two layers, it's very hard for that moisture to migrate through the layers of clay. It gets trapped in there. So when you fire, it is going to, not always, and it depends on your clay body. It depends on your clay body. It depends on your firing. It depends on your environment. I can add small amounts, but I have to really be careful about that. And I'm going to leave him relatively, now for lips, I'm going to show you how I do add a little bit of clay, but I'm adding like a coil. I'm not going to put a lot of features on him. He's going to be a little on the rough side. So I'm adding a coil. I've scored it, and I'm pressing from the center out. So, a little lopsided. I'm going to get my paddle. David?
Yeah.
Are you using a rib to, because they should have a smooth, from rim to rim, one smooth curve.
Yeah, I was gonna put them back on for the, actually stiffens up for the
Okay.
smoothness.
He's becoming alive. Yes, he is, Janet. The sculpture, not David. He is looking more alive. It's funny how the eye sockets, I mean, he really doesn't have any features to speak of, but just putting in the eye sockets and the nose really creates a human sort of appearance. Nadia says, I like that you're doing it in real time. People don't realize how much time it actually takes to create pieces like that. It's true. And I will say I do work pretty fast. But this is just a very rough kind of piece. And it does take a lot of time. And even if you add up the hours that I actually spend on the piece itself, it's not quite the same as if I'm it's not as if you can put those all together in one line, because I do have to wait for the sculpture to firm up at various points. So frequently when I was making a lot of sculptures, I would have multiple pieces going in the studio at the same time so that I could work on one and then let another one rest, and then, give them each a little time. And I'm going to leave him a little bit rough because I'm going to use him for a demo for glazing. And I want to be able to show different textures. Because glazing for sculpture, if you decide at some point to make sculptures, glazing for sculpture is very different from glazing functional pottery. You just have a different aim. So I'm going to do a lot of different surfaces on him. And I'm going to add another coil for now until he can set up a little bit more. And then I'm going to set him aside and we'll work on something else. As I've said before, this is my water bottle has a mixture. It's 2 parts tap water to 1 part white vinegar, and it helps to join things. Because I use a lot of different clays in the studio, I like to use vinegar and water for joining instead of using slip, because it's hard for me to keep all the different kinds of slip around. So just joining those coils together on the inside. He's going to look a little odd at first because the way I build the head to close it up, I build it a little on the pointy side so I can paddle it down to the right shape. And then I don't have problems with cracking, and I don't have problems with the top of the head collapsing or getting indented. Sometimes it's difficult to make a top of the head that does not fold in a little bit. So instead of making it exactly the shape I want, I make it a little taller, and then I use a paddle, or in this case my throwing stick, and beat it down into the right shape. And then it has that tension for being more pointy, so it won't collapse. A little bit like making an arch. Miranda says, do you find that works better than magic water? And no, I don't find it works better than magic water, but I'm always a little worried about putting magic water in a spray bottle because I worry that some of the materials in the magic water might harden up over time, and I guess it doesn't really, but always makes me a little nervous. So I just use vinegar and water, and that's it. That's all I use. But magic water, I love using magic water for putting on things like mug handles because it is so sturdy. Because it's small at this point, it's hard to get in there. I'm going to use my throwing stick to push out a little bit. There we go. And I'm going to leave him like that. He kind of looks like a little pot at the moment. And I'm going to make some little witch hats. Because we are only 2 months away from Halloween. And I live in an area that celebrates Halloween a lot and pretty much all year round. So I like making these little witch hat They also work as ring holders or trinket holders. Janet says, who knows? Someday, maybe someday, you'll make a sculpture. So I'm going to tip this down so you can actually see what I'm doing. There we go. So I've made my ball of clay into a pointy ball of clay, so like a little carrot. And I'm going to make this like a pinch pot. So I just stick my thumb in so that it's like that. Evelyn says, just tuned in. I'm so amazed at anyone being so skilled to make a human bust. It looks so easy, but Evelyn, just like making pots on the wheel, it's practice. And I've made a lot of them, so I enjoy making them. So I'm going to make this it's a pinch pot, but it's just a very pointy pinch pot. And Janet says, do you have photos of past sculptures? I do. I don't have any at the moment that I can throw up here on the screen, but if you go to amaco.com and you look at our resources section, there, I think it's under the clay how-tos, there is a series of videos on how to build a bust. And the bust that I do in the video is a recreation of Leonardo da Vinci's Woman with an Ermine. And so I demonstrate from the beginning, and it is sped up. It's not a real-time video, and there's lots of cuts because it took a long time. A recreation of Lady with an Ermine. So I demonstrate the shoulders, the arms, the hands, building an ermine, as well as making the face and features. And then I talk about how I used underglaze to finish it. It's a nice piece. So you can find that on the Amaco website. And I've made a few sculptural things for Amaco. The anthropomorphic animals. Oh yes, in the lesson plans area, there's the lesson plan on anthropomorphic animals, and I did the Deb the dinosaur, where it's the T-Rex in a prom dress, as well as the fox geisha and the hunting deer. So here's the top of my witch's hat. There we go. And I want to make it long and thin so that you can use it for rings, but you can also use it for other things that might be bigger. There we go. So I'm going to set that down for a minute, and then I'm going to make the brim of the hat. We have one of our interns is in here. She's glazing. This is Rissa. Do you want to come in on screen, and do you have any questions? No?
I made a little turtle.
Oh, it's beautiful. Cute little turtle. How are you going to glaze that today?
I think I'm gonna do like his arms and his face, like a jade green,
Jade green.
and then I'm gonna do a few different blues on the show.
So you're going to use all celadons?
I think so.
Nice. Sounds good. That'd be cute. Yep. Yep. So Rissa's got glazes out, and we'll be glazing. So this is another pinch pot that I'm making, but it is very flat. So I make two pinch pots, one very, very pointy and one very, very flat, just shallow. So you see how it is curved, just not too curved. And I just keep it going all the way out to the edges. There we go. So I have my brim. And I'm going to cut a hole right in the center, a little bit smaller than the top of my hat. So it's going to go like that. So I score both sides. Score one side, score my pinch pot, and there we go. And I kind of firm it down there, push it on there, and then get a wood tool. And I'm just going to stitch my seam. And then I use the piece I cut out to just roll a little coil. And that's going to be my hat band. Start at one end, mash into place, gently mash it. Wasn't quite long enough. And I'm going to use my wood tool to kind of smooth things out and down in the bottom. So and from the inside, I'm going to push and attach the brim to the hat, kind of an extra layer of joining. So that'll be, and there you go. It's a little witch's hat ring holder. Fun. So while that, sorry, I now have clay underneath my fingernails. There we go. Okay. Now I'm going to go back to my Sgraffito. Let's put that away. Before I finish, I want to put a kind of a crook in my witch's hat so it sort of has more attitude. There we go. All right, back to Sgraffito. So how many of you do Sgraffito? Do you use slip or colored slip, or do you use underglaze? So I have the beginnings here that I worked on. Isn't that fun? And I'm going to continue with this. So for any of you who are in the Detroit or Northern Ohio area, yesterday I went to Toledo, Ohio, and I visited the Toledo Art Museum. And for a smallish city, they have an exceptional art museum. And they have a huge Viola Fry sculpture, ceramic sculpture. She did much bigger than life-size sculptural work. And this one is a seated man, and even seated, it's taller than me. And he's sitting on the floor with a globe behind him. I would say he's probably about 6 feet tall on the floor. So if he were to stand, I think he would probably be 8 or 9 feet tall. Evelyn says, I use underglaze and I love Sgraffito. It's so much fun. Nadia says, I use Amaco underglaze. Love the velvets. Marie says, I've done Sgraffito. I use the velvets. They give such beautiful colors. Yes, they do. Mirinda says, usually I will use underglaze, but starting to dabble more in the colored slip. Yeah, so colored slip gives a different kind of texture than using underglaze, but that was how I had learned. I actually learned to do Sgraffito with colored slip instead of with underglaze. But we have so many beautiful colors available with underglazes that it just it's hard to pass up all the beauty of using underglazes. So when I was in school, we had a very limited palette for slips, and we had no commercial products at all. So oh, in addition to the Viola Fry, they also have a Robert Arneson, another California funk artist, and they have some beautiful Greek and Roman vessels, Egyptian. They have currently, if you are in the Toledo area, in the next, I think, 6 months, They currently have some Van Gogh paintings on display that are on loan from Paris. So go and check those out. The museum is free. They do charge for parking, but it's just a spectacular museum. Alan says, I live just northwest of Detroit. Well, if you haven't been to the Toledo Museum of Art, go check it out. Definitely worthwhile. And the cafe was really good too. They had a variety of really delicious foods. I had one of their salads, and it was really, really delicious. So check that out. I did not make those two bits the same size, but that's okay. We'll just go with that. I'm always a fan of checking out museums in cities where I go. You never know. Oh, they also had a very surprising Georgia O'Keeffe painting. It was a smaller painting, and it was not one that I had seen before, but really interesting. And just some, let's see, there was a de Kooning that I really liked, and oh, they have an exceptional in the basement. So if you come in from the parking garage, or if you're going to the or parking lot, and you or heading to the cafe on the first floor below the main galleries, they have a wall that has a Matisse tile mural, and it's huge. And really, really, I had no idea that Matisse did tile pieces, but apparently this was towards the end of his life, and it was very much like the paper cutout pieces that he did. But it's a huge tile piece. So if you like tile and you want to see some interesting ceramic use of ceramic tile, go check out the Toledo Museum, because that tile piece is just to die for. So I'm going to leave this one as it is. I think that was fun. And I have this one. But I think we are just about out of time for today. It is almost 11:30. And so we did a little sculpting, did a little witch hat, did a little sgraffito. Next Tuesday, I will be back at 11:30 Eastern time, and it will be all about the satin mats, and I will be covering the new satin mat glazes. So I will be showing you the new satin mats, comparing them to the existing satin mats, and talk a little bit about mixing with them and other things that you can do with the satin mats. I mean, you've seen me do a lot of things with the satin mats, but I'm going to do a little bit more. So join me on Tuesday. Have a wonderful Labor Day weekend, and happy glazing.